बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम रब्बि श्रह ली सदरी व यस्सिर ली अमरी वहलुल उक़दतम मिन लिसानी यफ़क़हू क़ौली रब्बि ज़िदनी इल्मा। Dear students, this is my lecture number 20 about future challenges in vertically moderated standard setting. This is unit number 5, and in this unit number is this lecture number 20. I will discuss about the application of vertically moderated standard setting. Dear students, first of all, I will discuss the learning outcomes of this session. At the end of this session, the students will be able to elaborate approaches of vertically moderated standard setting, describe the application of vertically moderated standard setting. Approaches to vertically moderated standard setting. According to the authors of vertically moderated standard setting, and their assumptions for standard setting are based on the intersection of 3 growth models and 4 expected growth amounts. These growth models may be summarized as follows. Number 1, linear growth. Linear means straight upward growth, which assumes that proficiency of all examinees increases by a fixed amount and examinees retain their position relative to one another. It means their growth is with increase with a fixed amount or a fixed rate, and their positions remain same relative to one another. The second approach, remediation, which assumes that the proficiency of examinees at lower end of the score distribution increases more than those of examinees at the upper end. It means remediation. In a remediation approach, assumes that the proficiency of examinees at lower end of the scores distribution increases more than those examinees at the upper end. It means the rate of change or increase in growth is different for lower end score distribution as compared to the upper end examinees scores. Number 3, acceleration, which assumes that the proficiency of examinees in upper portion of the score distribution increases at a greater rate than the examinees at the lower end of the score distribution. In acceleration approach, the upper portion proficiency of examinees score distribution increases with a greater rate than the examinees at the lower end of the distribution. Now, dear students, I will discuss these applications by comparing each other at a time. Application of vertically moderated standard setting. Because of the newness of the vertically moderated standard setting, only recently have results of these approaches been presented in the psychometric literature. These results are as follows. Growth trajectories, negative growth. In this table, the comparison of all three models has been given. In linear approach, all groups show decline over time. It means all groups in linear growth with the passage of time decline. Remediation. Overall group shows negative growth, but remedial group fares better than non-remedial groups. And third, acceleration. Overall group shows negative growth, but non-remedial group fares better than remedial group. So these are mixed type of results. Growth trajectories. It means notions about descriptions about growth. Yes, status of growth. No growth. It is also a situation. In linear growth, in linear group, all groups shows no growth over time. Remediation. Overall groups shows no growth, but remedial group fares better than non-remedial groups. Acceleration. Overall group shows no growth, but non-remedial groups fare better than remedial groups. Growth trajectories. Low growth. Linear. All groups show low growth over time. Remediation. Overall group shows low growth with most gain coming from remedial groups. In acceleration approach, overall group shows low growth rate with most gain coming from non-remedial groups. So another growth trajectory, moderate growth. Linear. All groups show moderate growth over time. Remediation. Overall groups show moderate growth with most gain coming from remedial groups. Acceleration approach. In acceleration approach, overall groups shows moderate growth with most gain coming from the non-remedial groups. So these were the different trajectories of growth which move from no growth to low growth and moderate growth. Dear students, now I will come towards an illustration of vertically moderated standard setting procedures. To illustrate mean describing vertically moderated standard setting methods, the steps followed in recent application of vertically moderated standard settings for establishing cut scores on an English language learners ELL test will be described. The test, the English language development assessment, spans grades 3 through 12. and was developed by the Council of Chief State School Officers and a collaborative of 16 member states. It means it was made through collaboration of 16 states of America. The following sections described the ELDA assessment preparations for the vertically moderated standard setting approach, training of the participants in the procedure, facilitation of the standard setting meetings, the actual vertical articulation of cut scores, and final review and adaptation of the cut scores. These will be described in later slides. Dear students, now I will come towards the assessment context. Assessment context. The ELDA is actually a complex assessment system consisting of 4 separate components. Number 1. It is like the 4-fold aims of teaching learning English. These includes reading, writing, listening and speaking. The reading and listening tests comprises 50 to 60 multiple choice items. The writing tests include both multiple choice and constructed response items. The speaking tests consist of 16 speaking prompts to which students respond either on tape or in the response of a trained scorer who scores the response as the student takes the test. It means the scorer who is recording the score will record the responses of students during test. The ELDA forms were developed for 3 grades, range from grades 3 to 5, grades 6 to 8 and grades 9 to 12. And 5 performance level categories were described. It means these are benchmarks which works for the next grades. The assessment context. The 5 performance labels PLLS adopted for the ELDA, which is a test, name of test, were from lowest to highest levels of performance. Level 1 pre-functional, level 2 beginners, level 3 intermediate, level 4 advanced and level 5 fully English proficient. So these are performance level labels which are determined by the test takers or test taking agency or entity for making setting standards in vertically moderated standard settings. Dear students, now I will come towards the training of vertically moderated standard setting. Training of vertically moderated standard setting participants. Training of participants began with an overview of the purpose of the standard setting as usual, and a whole group introduced to the activity. It means during training, the whole group of participants are introduced about the the activity. The introduction included an extensive review and discussion of performance level descriptors for 5 performance levels, which have been discussed in the previous slide. This orientation was followed by an introduction to the bookmark standard setting procedure. At the conclusion of the introduction to the bookmark method, participants practiced the method by setting one bookmark in a 6-page reading test booklet. At the end of the practice round, participants completed the first section of readiness evaluation questionnaire. A copy of this form is shown in the figure 14.2. I am repeating the steps of training of vertically moderated standard setting participants. First of all, training of participants began with an overview of the purpose of the standard setting and a whole group introduced to the activity. The introduction included an extensive review and discussion of PLDs or performance level descriptors for 5 performance levels, which have been discussed in previous slides. This orientation was followed by an introduction to the bookmark standard setting procedure. At the conclusion of the introduction to the bookmark method, participants practice the method by setting one bookmark in a 6-page reading test booklet. At the end of the practice round, participants complete the first section of our readiness evaluation questionnaire. This is a chart of training activities of vertically moderated standard setting participants. Monday, August 15, grade span, standard setting committee. The session started at 8:15 a.m. Continual breakfast and materials. 8:45, introduction and overview performance level descriptors. 10:45, break. 11, orientation to standard setting procedures. At 12 noon, lunch break. At 1, reconvene in separate rooms, stated standard setting. This is round 1. Round 1 at 4, wrap up, and 4:30 adjourn. It means the whole process is repeated. And this way, the second day, it is a hypothetical model or chart for conducting training sessions of the participants. Tuesday, it is actually a 5 days training. Tuesday, August 16, grade span standard setting committees. 8.15 continual breakfast and materials. 8.45 continuation of round 1 lunch. Round 1. 12 noon lunch. At 1 p.m. continuation of round 1, or at 4 p.m. wrap up, and 4.30 adjourn and end of the meeting. And Wednesday, third day, 17 August, grade span standard setting committees. Again, same 8.15 a.m. continual breakfast and materials. 8.45 round 2. 12 noon lunch. At 1 p.m. continuation of round 2. 4 p.m. wrap up and 4:30 adjourn. And Thursday, August 18, articulation committee. At 8.15 a.m. continual breakfast, orientation to articulation committee. 10 break. 10:15 reading all grades. 12 noon lunch, and at 1 p.m. speaking all grades. 2.30 listening all grades, and 4.30 adjourn. And on Friday, 5th day, again the session starts 8.15 a.m. continual breakfast and materials. 8.45 writing all grades. 12 noon lunch, and at 1 p.m. comprehension and composite. And 4 p.m. wrap up and 4.30 adjourn. So this was the chart or table of training of participants, 5 days for vertically moderated standard setting. Dear students, this was the session in which I discussed with you about the introduction of vertically moderated standard setting, approaches, trajectories, assessment context of the vertically moderated standard setting, and in the last, training of vertically moderated standard setting participants. And I have also shared a chart or a program of 5 days training of participants in vertically moderated standard setting. Thank you for your attention. In next lecture, I will discuss about the alternate solutions for vertically moderated standard setting. Assalamu alaikum.